Hello everyone and welcome to our first video in our How to Teach Go series. In this series we're going to be teaching you how to teach Go to children or complete beginners when you have a limited amount of time and you're at like a convention or something and you don't have a lot of time to get them interested. You just got to get them playing as soon as possible, and that is also a similar method with youth, because with kids they don't want to spend a lot of time listening to a lecture or listening to you explain things. They just want to play as fast as possible. However, you do need to get them to understand the rules. So we will be learning exactly how to teach the rules, how to teach each thing, and you'll get faster as you go along, and then you can eventually develop your own ways of explaining these same steps. Basically, I'll teach you probably more or less what they need to know and some examples you can use, and then you can of course develop your own strategies for teaching beginners, because there's no one correct way to teach beginners. So what I'm going to do is teach you my approach and the rule set that I use when I teach beginners in order to get them playing and help them understand as fast as possible. Alright, so the first thing I do is, normally when they ask me what is this game, or I'm telling them this is Go, and I'm teaching the kids in a class or I'm teaching at a convention, I will just say the object of this game is to surround more area than the opponent. And I will say now that if you are going to teach them a rule set, I have found it to be much easier to use Chinese rules, or the rule set that I invented in I think there was a French rule set that also used a rule set similar to Chinese, and they invented their own rule set. I think it's the Strasgo method, and I was highly inspired by them to use their rule set, and I didn't know the exact rule set, so I had to rewrite it in my own words and in my own way. But basically it's like the Chinese rules. The stones are points and the area is points. And when I explain it, I just say you want to get as many stones on the board and surround as much area on the board as possible. And whatever in the area you surround that's surrounded by one color is points, and your stones are points. And if you don't know, then just keep placing stones on the board, and because you're going to gain a point every time you place a stone on the board. So as long as they can place stones, just do it. And that way it will prevent less mistakes or less concern about where should I play. I don't know if this is a good or bad move. Well, I just tell them if you're placing a stone on the board, then you're going to gain a point. So as long as you're able to place stones, and placing stones good. This will teach them to fill up their own territory, and that's okay. Let me explain why that's okay. Because by filling your own territory, you are not losing any points with this rule set. You're not gaining any, you're not losing any. In their mind, they'll think they're gaining a point. Eventually, they will realize that, oh, this is mine, I can fill it, or I can just leave it. And you can also explain that after you see them play several games. You can say, okay, this is my area, so if I fill it, then I get a point, but if I don't fill it, I'm still going to get that point, and then they just will say, I don't have to fill it, so I can just pass, or something like that. It's a lot easier to transition from teaching them that the stones are points. It's a lot easier to transition into don't fill your own territory if you don't have to, than it is from the other teaching methods that I've seen, for example, like Japanese Go, or Japanese rules, and Capture Go. And I don't teach Capture Go, and I don't teach Japanese rules because many players do fill in their own points, and Japanese rules hurts beginners. It really hurts beginners' points, and you can see when you fill in the dead stones, fill in the area with the dead stones, it's really kind of a bad effect. You can just see their face getting sad because they have very little points, sometimes even negative points if you're playing a teacher. But in this rule set, if you remove the stones, then as long as they have some points, then you're like, oh, good job, you got 10 points. Even if they lost like 50 stones, as long as they get 10 points, they're happy because they get territory, and you're like, okay, try and get a little bit more next time. So the Japanese rules, I feel, will make them feel bad when they have to fill in their own territory, and if they do fill in their own territory, they lose points, so they have less points at the end. But in this rule set, you'll be able to say, okay, you have this many points, you have like 2 points, but you have 20 stones on the board, so you have 22 points. Congrats, you have a lot of points, and it makes them feel better. And the Capture Go rule, I am of the opinion that teaching Capture Go first is actually not good. Now, many players will disagree with me. Well, let me explain why I think this. Capture Go is really good for teaching liberties and teaching them to defend themselves and how to attack, how to defend. And for kids, it's a lot more fun to capture than it is to not capture. And so when I have taught the Capture Go before, I have found it much more difficult to transition them into a territorial game, because even when they learn the territorial rules, they're still going to go for capture. And it's a lot harder to break them of this habit. However, if you explain from the start that the game's about territory, and you teach them territory and capture at the same time, and you have to word it correctly in order to do this to make it make sense, and you teach them that if you capture stones, then they just get removed from the board. And that way, you can just say, if they go inside of your area, just capture them. So, but try to make an area. It's more important to make an area. And then if they go inside, you can just capture them. And that way they don't focus on the capture roll, or adults don't. Kids will probably still try to capture each other because they find it fun. But once they understand the difference in mindset, saying, oh, I know it's about territory, but capturing's fun, and the difference of that and I'm gonna capture, and then like, oh, it's about territory now. How do I change? It's a lot easier to change mindsets when you already know it's about territory, and you're just saying, okay, this stone's big. Yes, I can capture it, but what if I go get points over there? Instead, it's a couple more points than just that one stone. It's a lot easier to teach them that or transition that than it is the capture go to territory go, in my opinion. So this is again my opinion, and in my experience, I have found the transition for long-term students to be much easier if they learn that it's about territory first rather than capture go first and then territory later. All right, so now let's explain how I teach that in like maybe 2 minutes. So I have a student and they're asking me what the game is. So I tell them, oh, okay, the game's about territory. It's a game where you're trying to surround more area. So I'll set up a position maybe like this because you want to show them a good position. I have shown this before where I say this is 4 points, blah, blah. I have shown this example, but I found that this example will psychologically train them to play better moves, and that is because once they see good shapes, they will repeat those shapes. So if you show them this shape for their very first shape, then they're probably going to try to make this shape when they play. And if you show them this shape and say, okay, now I get this, and you see how black's surrounding the right side in the area of influence. Well, the object is for black to try and get a lot of territory. And then I'll say, when you count, what you do is you secure the territory. Let's say you have a line like this, and it's 9 plus 9 is 18 points, and plus another 9 stones, so you have 27 points of territory, because it's area plus stones equals territory. So that will show them that the stones plus the area equals territory, and I will say, if you are not sure, then just go ahead and place more stones, and that way you can gain more points. Or if you have a position, this might come up in a game where if you have a position and it's dame, and there's some dame stones, right? You have a position something like this, and this will be something you can teach at a later time, but just while I have this up. If you need points, you can easily just make more points by placing stones on the board. And as long as you can place stones on the board, you're gaining points. That way they will start filling dame. It's a really good habit to teach them to fill dame because it makes it easier to count at the end. All right, so I'll explain that. Okay, so the area you surround is points, and the stones are points, and I'll show them an example. And then when you play, you'll black plays first, and you'll rotate taking turns. So I'll play a little example like this, and I'm like, so what you do that is. So what you do there is you surround your own points, and the white will surround his points, and then you just expand your territory as you go along. And then when you do that, it becomes very easy to explain that when the territory is finished, you just start reducing your opponents and push the edges. And maybe I'll keep it simple and do that sometimes, or I might do that, just whatever I want. But if you just play a quick example and don't spend more than 30 seconds placing the stones on the board, just say, okay, this is some territory, this is an example, and you can see both black and white are making area, and then they expand their area, and then they try to push the borders and just finish. Once you explain that, and then you say, okay, but that's half the rules right there. You encourage them, like, oh, you already know half the rules of Go. The other half is the capture rule, and this is to prevent your opponent from going inside your own area, because if they go inside your own area, you just lose all the points. However, there's the capture rule, and the capture rule states that stones that get surrounded will get captured. And then I'll show them an example, and I'll be like, for example, if I have this and I surround it, this white stone gets removed because it doesn't have what's called liberties. And liberties are like your lifelines. I explained that lifelines because no one knows what a liberty is. A liberty is not even the right definition in English. In Japanese it is, in English not really. So I say it's like your lifelines. And the lines connected to your stones are like your lifelines. So you can see here, I point out one by one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this white stone has 4 liberties. So if you were to place 4 black stones, you capture it. The only way to save it is actually to connect stones for example, like this, and the stones that are connected through the lines share liberties. So this has 1, 2, 3 liberties. And then I'll set up this position, I'll remove the black stones, and I'll say, so how many liberties do you think these 2 stones have? And if they get, some of them will get 6 immediately, some of them will take a few seconds, and some of them won't get it. So you just explain it. If they get it immediately, then maybe set up one more just to test them. And if they get that immediately, then they know liberties. They understand liberties. And then you repeat yourself. You say, so yeah, there's a capture rule, and that is to prevent them from going inside. If they go inside, you want to push them to the edge and capture them. And I say that specifically because that is an actual strategy for beginners that many beginners mess up on, is they want to capture something, but they don't know that you're supposed to push it towards the edge. So I'll plant that little seed. I'll be like, I will say that if you want to capture them inside your area, you just push them towards the edge. And that way, when they run away, you just block them. They run away, you block them, and they'll be trapped along the edge, and you'll eventually capture them. And that will teach them to push stones to the edge. And just right there, I'll be like, all right, so now you know enough to play, so do you want to try? And I'll usually pair them up with a beginner, or I'll play myself, or I'll play them myself. Now, when I play, I do not invade. Do not invade them, guys. You can make a big area, that's fine, but do not invade a beginner. It's very unnecessary and very confusing for the beginner. All you need to do is push the borders. Some teachers like to let the beginner win. I don't, but that's my style. Just because I want them to know that, hey, I'm a little bit stronger than they are, so I want you to ask me for advice, and I can give you that advice. But if they think they can beat me every time, then I found some of them stop listening to me. So I usually just beat them. I don't beat them very severely. I don't try to kill them. I only make maybe a few points more than they do and just win. And most of the time, it doesn't even end up like this. Most of the time, the territory will end up something along these lines where I have probably like half the board. And this will be like maybe the territory right here. And that's how I usually win. And that's fine. That's fine. And when they get to the point where they're like this, they're like, okay, now where do I play? I'm like, well, just try placing stones on the board. Where can you try and push mine? Where's my area open at? And they're like, oh, maybe here. And then I'll be like, okay, good. Now I just Atari you have to connect. And then I'll simply push the borders. And maybe I'll teach them to shape if I think they're ready for it or not. I'll teach them that. And then I'll point out the cut. I'll tell them to fix the cut because I don't want to cut. I don't want to be mean. And then I'll be like, okay, is there anywhere else you can make points? And I'll just fix here. I'm like, can you place stones anywhere? And they might find this, and then they might try to invade. When they invade, this stone's okay to kill because you want to show them that invasions are a little dangerous, so don't do it without preparation. So I'll be like, okay, so I'm going to simply push you to the edge, like I said, and we can play this way, and you'll see that eventually black will get captured. And I'll just reduce them, and they'll try to escape. And then don't let them capture your stone because they will get confused if they think their move's good. And then they might try. And then I'll just remove the stones and hand it back to them. I do not keep the dead stones because the dead stones filling up the opponent's area is very depressing to see. When you lose all those points, it's very depressing. And then I'll just explain that, yes, this stone, I will place the stones and be like, yes, I can capture it, but I don't have to because I can capture it. And do you think it can live? You ask them that. Do you think it can live? And they will be like, no, it definitely can't live because there's no way to go. There's no way to escape. You don't teach them eyes. Don't worry about eyes or anything like that. Just be like, can they live? And so you'll teach them that if it's inside and getting surrounded, that it's going to be dead. You can explain eyes later. So now you'll stop and you'll remove the stone and just say, okay, this is my area and this is your area. We can keep playing if you want. We can fill it, but it's going to be points no matter what. For adults, you can do that. For kids, you're just like, do you think it's done? If not, then where can you place stones? And they might try again until they realize that they can't play inside the area, or they might start filling in their own, but this rule set is okay because they can fill in their own area. The only thing you have to teach kids is once they fill up their area down to the last 2 points, you will tell them that, okay, yes, you can this is all your points. Yes, good job. But if you play here and I place a white stone, for example, if I place a white stone right here, then all your stones get captured. And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And they're very surprised. So I'll tell them, I'm like, then don't fill this point. This is already your point. But if I play here, you capture me. If I play here, you capture me. And you actually don't even need to mention eyes. You just, because they'll automatically get it. They'll you show them that if they fill this, then they only have one liberty. So they'll just leave it like this, and you can just tell them, just leave it like this. There's no reason to fill that. It's already yours. And then once they realize this concept, it'll become much easier for them to realize that, oh, this is already their points. And then they can even take a step further back and eventually get to this point where they're like, oh, this is already my points. If I fill it or don't fill it, this is my points. And it's a lot easier to do that transition. So that is pretty much it. I teach them that, and then I'll play them in a game, or and get them playing their first or second game. And I play them on a small board. This is important because beginners will find the 19x19 daunting, and it'll take forever in their mind. For us, we're used to the amount of time it takes to play a Go game, but you have to realize even a 9x9 I think is sometimes too big, and I've printed out 7x7 boards because I think the 9x9 just takes too long for absolute beginners, even especially children. So I will show them that, or I will let them play on a smaller board, and this will have them play many games very quickly, and it'll be over quickly because they want to play and see the result. They just want to try and then they want to win. But if it's taking forever in their mind, then they're not going to have the patience to finish. They'll find Go boring. So let them play, and then when they play mini games, they'll actually. So I found some kids actually ask to play on a bigger board because they want a bigger game, they want a bigger challenge, they want to up their level, and they'll actually sometimes do it themselves. And for adults, you'll actually see a similar feat. They'll ask to play on a bigger board once they're used to it. So don't rush them. Start them on a small board. Everyone recommends 9x9s for beginners, but I actually sometimes recommend 7x7 if you don't have that much time or you're dealing with kids. 7x7 boards are even good because it's a lot easier for them to play and make territory, and a lot less room for them to make mistakes. But normally pair them with other beginners, let them play, and just let them have fun. That's the biggest thing. You want them to have fun just playing their first game. You want them to play as fast as possible, enjoy it, play, have fun with their friends, and play as many games as possible. And once they're into it, then you can start worrying about teaching them strategy and other things. So in our first video, this one is about liberties, but it's actually about liberties and basic territory, because you just explain it both at the same time very, very quickly, and only a broad segment. Let them play and experiment without giving them a bunch of rules to follow, because it's very confusing and very annoying to try and figure out what's a good move and what's a bad move. Just teach them that this is okay. This is try and surround your own area. And then once they get a couple games under the belt, then you can move on and start teaching them other stuff. Alright, so that is our first video in our How to Teach Go series. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Feel free to post questions or suggestions in the comments below. Again, this is only my opinion in how to teach Go. It is my strategies and my experience in teaching. Everyone has their own teaching style and their own opinions, which they are eligible to, and some people will find that certain strategies work better for others, because maybe you explain it one way and I explain it another, and for me this method might be best, but for you another method might be best if you have a different wording or a different approach. So this is again my experience and my strategies, but if you are having trouble teaching beginners, then try maybe this method. Maybe it'll help you out. Alright, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, then please consider subscribing to my channel. Otherwise, go ahead and click on the next video. And if you want to support me creating this series and other Go series alike, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.